feeling like a failure comes up for me a lot. And in the past, I've let it stop me from taking action on creative inspirations that I feared I wasn't capable of actually bringing into fruition. Fear, I think, is a universal shadow for most creators. At some point in your creative journey, you're gonna feel fear. So I really wanted to ask Spirit today, what are we working with? Because I do believe that our creative blocks are our greatest teachers. And if we can learn to work through that fear and actually face it, we can come to understand ourselves as creatives on a much deeper level. So I want us to look at failure using a 3-card spread that I like to call the gift of the block. This first card in the bottom left is our general perspective on fear of failure. The card at the top represents Spirit's perspective, so the higher perspective that we're asked to embody. And the card to the bottom right is a card regarding moving forward. So if we take this higher perspective, how will we be able to move forward with our creative projects? The reason I chose this spread is because I firmly believe that our creative blocks are invitations for us to grow as individuals. That our creative journey isn't just something that we do arbitrarily or just for the fun of it, but it is actually a spiritual yoga that we engage in as creators and is there to teach us many things about ourselves. So if you're ready to look at failure through that lens, so that you can stop beating yourself up about it and actually take on the higher perspective that Spirit is guiding you to take on, guiding all of us here at Awakened Creators to take on. And let's see what the cards have to teach us. So let's start with the typical perspective represented by this card here. And we have Death. I'm kind of not surprised to see the Death card in this position. It's a card that I think a lot of people tend to fear in the tarot, but in reality, the Death card really speaks to a powerful transformation, a change that's going to occur in our life that we won't be the same after it. I guess looking at failure through this lens, this typical perspective, is that we think maybe our failures are the end of us as creators, that there won't be any coming back after that moment in time. I would also say that I see here with the king being the dead body on the ground here, that there's an aspect of us that feels like maybe we've lost control over what it is we're trying to build. And that failure for us really is invoking this idea that we're not capable of actually bringing it to fruition. We've sort of died before our time, so to speak. Of course, there is actually a lot of positive imagery in the Death card. As you can see in the background, there is a beautiful sunrise. This really is about a rebirth, a shift, and a change within us. Creative blocks in general, they're opportunities and invitations for us to change. So it totally makes sense that the Death card would appear in this position. So now let's talk about the higher perspective. We all know what fearing failure actually feels like. We worry, we're filled with anxiety, we think we're not good enough, we think whatever it is, we will have wasted our time. It'll all end up dead in the end. So let's see what the higher perspective is that Spirit has for us today. We have the 3 of Pentacles. I think the 3 of Pentacles in this position is actually really positive because from my perspective, Spirit is telling us very clearly that the higher perspective of our creative blocks is an opportunity to manifest. It's an opportunity to bring something new into existence, to co-create with the universe, to build something not based on what we were feeling and thinking and believing before, through our fears, but instead to build something that is based on an enlightened perspective of ourselves, one that has matured and grown and understands the true meaning of that Death card that we saw at the beginning. So as you can see, there are 3 figures in the 3 of Pentacles here. We're building something tangible, and we're doing it with 3 distinct aspects of ourselves. The aspect of ourselves that is the planner, the aspect of ourselves that is the doer, and the aspect of ourselves that is the divine inspiration. This reminds me of the cycle of creative flow, which is made up of mind, body, and spirit. If you haven't watched the video series I did on creative flow, I absolutely would recommend that you do that. This is the beauty and the magic of spirit. Because I'm just seeing that now in the symbol at the top with the 3 concentric circles. So I definitely recommend that you go watch that playlist and come to understand how creative energy actually works, how it functions, so that the next time the fear of failure comes up for you, you know how to move into the next phase of the creative flow cycle and you're not just left floundering. I would also say that this is definitely a card of some action. There is movement here. There is someone actively creating something. So for me, that really does mean that our fear of failure is meant to be something that ends up culminating in an action. It's not just something that we're meant to introspect about, like maybe if this was the Hermit card and we would only do inner work and we wouldn't actually do anything in the outer world. There's very clearly an individual aspect of ourselves in this card that is taking action based on this information and inspiration. So once we can grasp hold of the true lesson behind our fear of failure, maybe you do that through some journaling exercises, which I have some videos on as well. Maybe it's that you go talk to your therapist or a trusted friend about why this keeps coming up for you and what's really at the core and root of it all. And through that introspective process, then determine an action that you can take in order to move forward. So it's not just about introspecting, it's about actually taking some action. Lastly, let's look at how we can move forward. What does Spirit have to say about that? If we're going to apply this 3 of Pentacles card to our fear of failure represented here by the Death card, like what can we expect afterwards? How will we move forward utilizing these energies? Okay, so we have the Wheel of Fortune, which is an interesting card for moving forward, primarily because it's a bit of a wild card, right? It's kind of like, well, who knows exactly what will happen next? However, the Wheel of Fortune does state in its imagery that when we come to solve the riddle of the Sphinx, when we come to, and you can see the Sphinx is holding a sword, which would be a brand new perspective, a new way of understanding, when we can finally grasp this aha of why our fear of failure keeps coming up for us, we can actually move the wheel forward. The energy can move forward. And that's really the goal with the Wheel of Fortune. We want to let our inner demons, so to speak, kind of, they've had their turn and now it's time for us to actually co-create with the universe, 3 of Pentacles, using our higher wisdom, our higher selves, our aligned and fully integrated versions, rather than purely fear, purely feeling out of control, purely feeling like there's no possible way we can recover or be reborn through this experience. Now, I always like to look at the bottom of the deck after I pull tarot. Usually there's kind of like a foundational message there. So let's see what's at the bottom of our deck today. So we have the 4 of Swords at the bottom of our deck today. And I think that's a perfect card. That is that introspection that we were talking about. That is how you're going to get to the root of the problem. And the swords indicate that it's going to be kind of calculated out through your mind. So this is where I think like communicating it to someone else or journaling about it, I think Spirit is very clearly saying that's going to be an effective method for getting to the bottom of your individual fear of failure, because every creator is going to be different. How you perceive failure is not how another person perceives failure. The Four of Swords also represents to me, because of the 3 swords on the wall, the 3 of Swords card, which is a card of heartbreak. So I would look through your own past in terms of heartbreak and how that has impacted you and your perspective on failure. I do think once you've spent enough time introspecting about this topic, you're going to get some answers that are going to bring clarity and move you into solving that riddle of the Sphinx and shifting the energy forward, allowing the universe to start to bless you in incredible ways that you never thought possible. So even though failure and fear of failure is something that every creative is gonna face along their creative journey, maybe something that you are going through and experiencing right now, I think it's something that we have the opportunity to truly grow from if we do enough inner work necessary to start doing that outer work that we love. Which card in this spread spoke to you the most? Where do you feel like Spirit is really calling you to step into a better understanding of what the root of your fear of failure might be? Share that in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. Utilize the tools available to you here at Awakened Creators, and I will provide you a link to a video that I think will be the next right step for you on your creator journey. And in the meantime, I love you. Thank you for being committed to your art, to your heart, to you. Namaste.